For a man who has seen everything, it takes a lot to be surprised. Rick Harrison built an empire on the strange and the valuable. But one day, an item arrived that would test his limits. It appeared to be nothing more than a 30-pound lump of rock, an unremarkable piece of marine salvage fused together by the sea. Then, the seller named his price, $700,000. Suddenly, Rick wasn't just looking at a rock. He called it the Motherload, the one treasure he had always wanted to find, because this was no ordinary treasure. It was presented as a lost piece of the Taj Mahal's legacy, a treasure of unimaginable value and romance. But the truth was far more complex. Its real story didn't begin with a monument to love. It began with an act of betrayal, a powerful empire, and a ship that vanished from history. It is a monument to eternal love, a testament to one man's devotion built from white marble and precious stone. For over 20 years, the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan poured the wealth of an empire into the Taj Mahal. He was creating a perfect final resting place for his beloved wife. It was a legacy of beauty, meant to last forever. But the son of its builder saw the world differently. Prince Aurangzeb was a man of iron will and orthodox faith. He saw his father's magnificent obsession as decadent and wasteful. And so, he did the unthinkable. He waged a bloody war against his own brothers for the throne, and he imprisoned his aging father in a fort, leaving him to gaze at the Taj Mahal from a distance. By 1702, Emperor Aurangzeb commanded one of the wealthiest empires on earth. His domain stretched across nearly the entire Indian subcontinent. His authority was absolute, maintained through decades of relentless military campaigns, and his power was stamped onto silver. From the imperial mint in the city of Surat, a new currency flowed. Surat was a global hub, a gateway for trade between India and the world, and these were silver rupees of exceptional purity, over 96%, but they were more than just money. They were works of art, each one bearing a poetic couplet in Persian script, a declaration that praised not Shah Jahan, but the new ruler, Shah Aurangzeb, Alambir, the world grasper, the throne adorner. That same year, an unnamed trading vessel, likely a Surat junk, docked in the bustling port. Its hold was loaded with thousands of these newly minted coins, packed into coir bags. They were not for a royal tomb, but for the gears of commerce, a silver key to the spices and silks of the Orient. As the monsoon season brewed, the ship slipped its moorings. It carried a fortune in silver into the vast, unpredictable Indian Ocean. For centuries, the Indian Ocean was a highway of commerce. Vessels like the one from Surat were the lifeblood of this network. They were the workhorses of a thriving intra-Asian economy. They braved unpredictable waters for the promise of immense profit. But the ocean always took its share. As the ship sailed south along the coast of India, the sky began to change. The predictable monsoon winds shifted into something more violent. A powerful typhoon was forming. It drove the ship off course, pushing it toward the treacherous southern coast of Ceylon and directly towards a notorious ship killer, a nearly invisible trap of submerged rock and violent currents, a reef that rose from the depths to just below the surface. It was called the Great Basses Reef. The storm descended without mercy. Colossal waves crashed over the deck, splintering the wooden hull. The masts snapped under the force of the wind. Helpless against the surge, the ship was driven onto the rocks. The hull was torn apart, spilling its contents into the sea. There were no survivors. No distress calls were ever recorded. The ship, its crew, and the treasure of Emperor Aurangzeb simply vanished. Consumed by the sea, it slipped from the pages of history, and for more than 2.5 centuries, there was only silence. 2.5 centuries passed. Empires rose and fell, but the ocean kept its secrets. In 1956, one of the world's most imaginative minds moved to the island. Sir Arthur C. Clarke was a celebrated author, a visionary who dreamed of humanity's future in space. But he had another passion, another frontier to explore. He believed the world beneath the waves was as alien and wondrous as outer space. Scuba diving, for him, was the closest a person could get to the weightlessness of the cosmos. This passion connected him with a small group of adventurers. In March of 1961, his friend Mike Wilson was on a diving expedition near the Great Basses Reef. He was joined by two American teenagers, Mark Smith and Bobby Kriegel. Their underwater filming was cut short by poor visibility. Frustrated, they decided to explore a new, uncharted part of the reef. It was a decision that would change their lives. On the seabed, at a depth of 65 feet, they spotted an unmistakable shape. It was a small bronze cannon, its form softened by centuries of marine growth. Their excitement grew as they found more cannons nearby. Then they saw them, misshapen lumps of dark material scattered among the rocks. At first, they looked like nothing, but when Wilson scraped away the coral and weeds, he saw the unmistakable gleam of silver. He knew, in that instant, this was the moment all divers dream of, the moment a ghost from the past reaches out to the present. Using a large inner tube as a makeshift lift, they hauled their finds to the surface. They had found the lost treasure. A chance discovery is one thing. A scientific recovery is another. In 1963, Arthur C. Clarke and Mike Wilson returned to the Great Basses Reef. This time, they were not alone. They were joined by Peter Throckmorton, a pioneer in underwater archaeology. His job was to bring a methodical approach to the wreck site. This was no longer a treasure hunt. It was a historical excavation. The team faced immense challenges. The ship's remains were wedged in a narrow, rocky gully. Violent sea currents threatened the divers on every descent. And the artifacts themselves were trapped in a rock-hard casing of coral and sand. Using hammers and chisels, they carefully worked to free the ship's secrets. They recovered more cannons, cannonballs, and parts of flintlock muskets. But the real prize was the silver. They brought the fused clumps of coins to the surface, some weighing nearly 40 pounds. And as they broke them open, they made a breathtaking discovery. The outer coins were corroded by 259 years in the sea, but the coins sealed in the center were perfect. They were in pristine, mint condition, protected from the salt water. They looked as if they had just left the mint in 1702. This find was also a numismatic breakthrough. No one had ever seen a silver rupee for Surat from that specific year of Aurangzeb's reign. The wreck had filled a gap in the historical record. The entire expedition was meticulously documented. Clarke recorded every detail, every challenge, every triumph. In 1964, he published his book, The Treasure of the Great Reef. The book made the find famous. It transformed a private adventure into one of the most well-documented treasure recoveries in history, and it cemented the legacy of the ship that vanished so long ago. And that should have been the end of the story. A lost treasure found and documented for history. But the lure of immense wealth created a new, darker chapter. First came the marketing. Professional treasure salvers began to commercialize the find. The treasure was given a romantic, compelling name, the Taj Mahal Treasure. It was a brilliant lie. The coins had no connection to the famous monument. They were from the era of the Sun, who had imprisoned its builder. But the new name made the treasure irresistible on the open market. Then, in 1992, the unthinkable happened. A massive 30-pound clump of over 1,000 coins was illegally smuggled out of Sri Lanka. A priceless piece of the nation's maritime heritage was stolen and put up for sale. Sir Arthur C. Clarke himself, a man of immense global standing, tried to get it back. He personally negotiated for its return, but the dealers and the opaque international market were too powerful. The treasure never came home. And this brings us back to a pawn shop in Las Vegas, because the contested artifact that appeared on Rick Harrison's counter was not just any piece of the treasure. It was the exact same clump that was illegally taken in 1992. The seller's story was complicated, the ownership was murky, and the object itself was a piece of stolen heritage being broadcast to the world. Rick Harrison's final offer of $200,000 was rejected. The deal fell through, and the clump of coins vanished once more. Its current whereabouts are unknown. Sri Lanka's legal claim remains unresolved, leaving the final chapter of this 300-year-old story unwritten.